just weird. All right, I'm going to run away real quick. If you don't mind, I'll be right back. Right. All right, I'm back. Okay. Spencer, you seem to be here.
I am here.
All right. I've added you to the list of attendees. I've now added you to the list of attendees.
Thank you. And I think I'm all set up to start facilitating after we give people a few minutes.
You're Google, right?
Yeah.
Carolyn, that's true for you too?
I'm IBM.
IBM, sorry about that. Actually, that's good, because that means we've got multiple orgs involved here.
Yeah.
And
David, those are project individual updates unless you probably want to move that section, that question to agenda. We're trying to.
oh, okay, all right. So the scorecard V2 also, or
right? I just so that like that's
okay.
why we want to. So the project individual updates essentially to say, hey, these are things that are happening across project. And agenda, because sometimes we're not able to get to everything, and we're trying to be cognizant about what comes in.
Okay, and I think the same is true for the V2 action for scorecards. I just moved that down. If that's
No,
wrong,
that is a release. So that's a project update.
oh,
There was a V2
okay. So,
release.
all
That's
right, my apologies. Let me undo that change and put it back where it was.
sure. Thanks.
Trying to be efficient.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it works.
All right. So it is 3 after. For everyone attending, if you could make sure to put your name in the attendance in the notes. Just helps us know who's here. My first time facilitating, so do people usually run through the project updates, at least at a high level?
Yes, we give usually opportunity for people to talk about any of those things so that it helps for everybody to know what is happening.
Cool. All right. So my screen should be up sharing the agenda notes. So a couple project updates. Azim, did you want to talk about the Gauge collaboration update? I don't know if Azim's on.
It seems still isn't on, as far as I see.
Yeah, I can cover. So Azim, myself, Caroline, and Arno, we met earlier this week, and we basically talk about this how we bring this. So Gauge is another open source project that is out there, right? And we are looking into identifying the opportunity to bring some features together. And I think Azim has opened one issue. Let me see if I can put it there. So we discussed, so essentially, yeah. So the idea essentially is to, whenever we have any releases, we need to know whether that we can trust that release. And the approach we are trying to take is we can add this option where we can have the concept of commit depth, where for a given reference commit, we can go back to the number of commits that went into that particular release, and we run the scorecard against those releases, and we measure basically they give some scoring to that particular release. So to give some confidence whether that particular release is okay to use or not. So yeah, so feel free to update if you have any thoughts on this. I think we wanted to get everyone's opinion, and then we'll start working on this particular feature.
Yeah, and during the discussion, we discussed the possibility of having the existing tool Gauge collaborate with Scorecard. And so one of the features of Gauge is like release analytics. And so since as of now, with Scorecard, there's no release information. So this issue is a step towards that. And so we were thinking of this maybe being the start of perhaps multiple issues that we can help contribute to Scorecard.
And I think Naveen, you had created one feature request for release, right? Like
Yes, which I would be working on, and I passed not to work on that because of all of the discussion. I think Caroline and someone else also wanted to, and that's why I passed on that. But because the commit depth is going to move forward, that is not going to stop the other one. To give people context, is the API, my feature request was probably about 2-3 meetings before to add release information for like, okay. In the Scorecard has an API right now, which was released today, to add release information in that. So essentially, consumers can consume the Scorecard API by asking, hey, what was the state of that particular release version of that repository? That's what it is. I'm likely going to pick it up and start working on it, but I just want to make sure that commit depth had some kind of that had some pathway to move forward. I wanted to wait for that, but that's going to come in.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And yeah, I can post. So I actually gave the talk on this gauge in Open Source Summit earlier this year, and I can post a link to the recording there. And yeah, the project is open source. And the idea essentially with Gauge was to measure the confidence of releases instead of a repository. So in addition to the repository, if we can add the some confidence to individual releases. And I saw, I think this new the badge. I saw the update that the badge is available, the scorecard badge. I think that would be another good addition that you can assign that this particular release has this badge, can assign some badge feature also there.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So commit, I mean the commit option in Scorecard right now doesn't really work on all the checks. Is this okay for you, or is it not okay? Like the commit option only works on file-based checks, so all the checks that don't use GitHub APIs, because we, at least until now, it's been difficult to look at, say, some settings in the past because there's no API to do it. Branch protection doesn't let you do that.
Yeah.
And maybe some you can, like code review, I guess you could go back in time, but
yeah, exactly. I think those are the ones that we measure, like the ones that are like immutable records, like who has been reviewed it, has this commit been reviewed by someone, and those things. If branch protection was on at that time, yeah, as you said, that's not available. So whatever information is available, we should be able to work with that. Yeah.
So do you know which checks would work and which would not?
Like yeah. So yeah, I can update in the issue. So the way we did it is we added few additional checks. So more specifically, I can tell you. So for given commits, we are looking into the number of contributors. Right? Are these those commits have been reviewed, and is the contributor same as the reviewer? Right? In some cases, we find whoever is committing is the same who is approving, which is a red flag. Right. So that checks I added. I'll put it in the issue that which checks are covered at the commit level and which we cannot cover that.
And just roughly speaking, do you know if this is just one or two checks that you cannot check and everything else is fine?
No, I think there are more than that. So I think out of 9, I think there are 20, 19, 20. So maybe 50%. I think that will be the ballpark. But I'll let it go through it to get the exact number.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks for the update on that. For the next update, Naveen with the Scorecard web app. Naveen, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I just wanted to say Scorecard web app is being fast with OSS fuzz right now. Just wanted to provide that as an update that eating our own dog food to make sure we are doing our stuff. Not obviously not every code path is being fast, but only some of them. Just wanted to give that as an update. And also I think next few items are at least mine. So one of the things, Spencer, if you don't mind, can you click that 6-toe nomination link, please? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. This is if you scroll up a little to the top, please. Yeah. 6-toe has the best user adopter award for 2022. This is going to be the guys can see, it is going to be awarded probably in the 6-toe con, which is happening with KubeCon. We think Scorecard is a good candidate for this because Scorecard is utilizing 6-toe's Recore and Flugio as part of today's release. So would request people to do a thumbs up so that Scorecard gets a fair chance to compete in this. Right now, no one else is, so it'll be nice. That's the second thing on that. the last one, and that is, if you don't mind, can you click on the top link? Yes.
Oh, sure.
Again, this is not my release. There's all of us doing work, getting a scorecard badge out along with API, along with security scorecards.dev. We have a website. I'm sure most of people who are there in this meeting are aware of it. It's for people who aren't, who get to come later, get to see what we have done. That's the update on this. And and again, we have an API right now. We have a REST API endpoint, which essentially means you can go hit that and ask questions and not have to jump through hoops to like something like BigQuery to go get the data. So those are good stuff on the new stuff that has come out. Okay, that's my update. David, you have a question?
I have a question and a comment. First of all, a quick comment, which is I actually talked to a reporter earlier this week who asked about this. So, very much emphasize this thing. So there has been some broader, interest in software community, which is great. But my question here is, the README talks about creating the links so that you can show off your little badge and link off to the JSON file. Does that only work if you've got a GitHub action? Does that work for anything on GitHub?
Good question.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Okay, you're right. It has to have a GitHub action. So you need to have.
I know it because best practices badge is doing this, and the badges do show up.
Okay. So I think Azim wants.
I don't think the action is a requirement because what we do is we actually look at we fall back on the cron data that we collect.
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay. I don't know that. Okay.
So what happens though is the action lets you have a more updated badge because you can actually have that score updated on every commit. Otherwise, you're always having the stale data that's coming from the cron data, which might be a week old. So it's really a fallback mechanisms for projects who don't have the action installed. So I joined late. Maybe I missed some of the context. What was the discussion around?
Well, the reason I asked is I was thinking about proposing that we move that instruction about how to add your badge up earlier in the README to kind of focus it. So I did some testing and found out that you actually didn't need that action for it to work. So now I was confused. All right, now I understand why it's backing off to the cron job, which is not a crisis, but
if the cron job, sorry.
Oh, sorry, good.
If the cron job doesn't have that repository, it's not gonna work.
Okay, but the cron job pulls in what? Everything on the best practices badge and another list too. I think I've forgotten who's in scope on the cron job.
I think we have like 1 million repositories. Most of it.
1.2 last time I checked.
Yeah, well, you'll probably catch some even if they don't have the action.
Sorry. If someone creates a new repository, it's not going to be there. That's what I'm trying to mean.
Gotcha. Okay, so we still want to tell people to add the GitHub action, but does anyone object to making that earlier? Because I think for a lot of folks, it's a lot easier to add to the README instead of figuring out how to download and run the tool.
Yeah, I think that works. I guess the badge was like an incentive we're providing users to say, hey, please install the action. If you want to show a badge. But I think I agree. I think it's also beneficial if more and more repositories show the badge, even if they don't have the action installed.
Yeah, it's easier to use if you're on GitHub, obviously.
Laurent, did you have a comment on that?
I think it's been answered. I just wanted to ask whether people thought that it should only be available when you have the GitHub action, so that it's a strong incentive to have it. But I guess the consensus is let's not be too harsh and let everyone display, and that's beneficial already.
You
Yeah.
want to make it easy. And having
Yeah.
a back off is not crazy. It does say right away when the date of the analysis was.
Yeah, I think that was the initial plan, but what I realized is the minute badges went live, a whole bunch of people started adding it. I have no clue where they even got the link from, but like TensorFlow started adding it, Flutter started adding it, even though they were not using the action directly. So I just let it be.
Oh, but we talked to them, right?
Oh, okay.
And TensorFlow.
Okay.
I would say don't cut them off at the knees. Be glad they're adding that thing, and they can add the GitHub action later. Having a week old data is probably not a crisis.
All right. So that was the end of the individual updates. For items on the agenda, there is an issue Naveen added about the scorecard blog.
Yep. So I am bringing this as a request that one community and the maintainer start on this, because right now, every time, like I want them, like which is mentioned in the issue, is like Salsa has its own blog, Sixstore. I'm trying to copy what other popular open source supply chain security projects have. Having a blog for our own scorecard itself, with what we already has as a website right now, helps us to provide some updates. Instead of it's right now we are posting it on OpenSSF, but OpenSSF also does not want some technical blocks because they want it to be, if I'm not wrong. And also getting our customers who are using it, giving them an opportunity to come and talk about it. Those are my thought process. I want others to answer. That's on a pass right now.
So I think before getting to the blog thing, maybe David, I actually have a question for you before answering the blog thing. So I wanted to understand if the LF had clarity on like the use of Netlify. I think some of these things around like, what can we add to the existing site, like if we can add more blocks, may depend on like our usage of Netlify. So wanted to understand, is that still a blocker, or are we good to go?
I don't know of any particular policy that would prevent blocking having a blog post specific to scorecard, as long as it's identified as a scorecard blog to differentiate from the other blogs.
Right.
Obviously, Salsa does that already. There's some other folks who do that also. So I guess the main thing would be, is it worth it? Because having a place where you post blogs isn't helpful unless somebody's willing to write them.
If you don't have my counter argument is, if you don't have a place to write, like I want to write something, I'm going to ask like people right now, like just having a counter argument, not that. For the PyPy team is using that. I'm like, great, they are tweeting about it, they're putting it in Slack. I'm like, let's write it up so that people are aware of it, so somebody else can come and read that.
I don't know of any particular policy against it, as long as it's clearly marked as the scorecard blog and not some other blog.
So I meant like the policy around usage of Netlify to host these sites.
I don't know of any.
Salsa does that. Salsa is in Netlify, and they're doing the same thing, unless we're going to be something different.
Yeah, I don't know of any policy like that.
Okay.
Much more of a practical thing. Is it worth it?
All right.
Sorry,
So unless there are
Azim,
any other.
do you have any concerns about?
I don't think so. I think I'm okay having a blog. But maybe to add to David's point, I think what we could start with is like a few series of blog posts. I mean, just an
Sure,
idea of what
absolutely.
blog might be. And right, like I think if we see that, hey, this is worth publishing somewhere, I guess we can figure out how to kind of build it.
I guess I would have I don't know if this is a policy thing, but I would suggest before posting have somebody else look it over.
Yes. I think the similar to what Salsa does is like have people review the blog post, have a couple of thumbs up, come up with that, and
Right.
then go do that. It's like it's not we just deciding to post it, but have this very similar to the open PR model. Get a couple of upvotes before you go do that.
Right. I'm thinking more in terms of, we have to be careful that's not looking like it's self-aggrandizement of a particular company. I mean, we're happy to give credit to folks if you do something great. Just don't want it to look like it's shilling for an org or something like that. Which I don't think anybody here wants either. But we have to be careful about that.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to bring up, a couple of things related to this. One is that does it actually make sense to have these blogs, get posted to the OpenSSF blog? Because, as someone who is subscribing to these blogs, for them, it's sort of hard to, subscribe to like now 3 of them, one for Sixstore, one for Salsa, and then one for Scorecard, when they're sort of trying to actually get information about the same sort of general area. So that was one idea. I mean, and the other, in fact, related topic is whether Scorecard should also have a Twitter account, where, for example, when some project uses Scorecard, then one can sort of congratulate them upon it, maybe increase in score or something, which will actually probably drive more adoption, than a blog, where the frequency is sort of limited.
I concur with the Twitter. And the reason again, I could be wrong. David could shoot me down saying I'm wrong. The OpenSSF has certain policies. I do remember Brian and OpenSSF on one of the comments on what needs to come in. Again, I could be wrong. Saying this is too technical. We wanted to not be too technical about it. Like if we had to get into nuts and bolts or something, unless if that policy changes and if OpenSSF is like, hey, we don't mind, like then we don't need this block. I agree to what Arun mentioned.
Okay, so maybe we should mark that down in the notes. Intended for cases where posting elsewhere doesn't make sense.
Yep.
Or
if that's a bottleneck.
Sorry.
Or if it's a bottleneck, like if for example, OpenSSF says, hey, what kind of blog post, like what are the policy? We don't have that information. If there should be a reason why Salsa is doing it, why Salsa driving it. If OpenSSF says, hey, it's much easier for you to go ahead and write over here, then that's the whole reason behind this conversation.
Yeah, I think for Salsa, I mean, part of it is that they already had it when they joined the OpenSSF, and nobody thought there was a reason to shut it down. So, I don't know of any particular policy regarding this, though.
Okay, so can we discuss this in the issue? Like we don't like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense.
Yeah, and in fact, maybe you ought to get Jory and others.
Yes.
See here. All right, so I'm gonna add Jory. Is there any policy about Scorecard having a blog? Salsa does.
And Sixto does.
Yeah, any policies related, I would say related to a scorecard blog. Yeah, what I don't know is if there's any special rules. As does who? Salsa and Sixtor.
Yep.
Yeah, Sixtor is a different beast, though. You know, so didn't know if there's any special rules. All right, so I'm going to post here. I'll see if other people comment.
Okay, if people are okay with that, then does anybody have an issue of Scorecard having a Twitter account? Because that should not cause any problem. So that is a good thought process that what Varun mentioned. Obviously that helps. So if people don't have any, then we can move with that. David, if you obtain notes, can you add that, please?
Well, how's this? You know, for that, you're going to need to contact operations.
Sure.
Okay. I generally get involved on the technical stuff. As far as the policy stuff, I try to know it when I do, but I don't know everything, and that is definitely not an area I know everything.
Absolutely. Okay.
About.
So it's on me. It's on me to hit operations@openssf.org.
Yeah. If you do people generally want to do that? I guess that's the question one. Do you want to have a Twitter account?
Like what were mentioned, a lot more people are on Twitter rather than going and reading a blog. It's a lot more shorter, sweeter, much easier.
Yeah, the same problem exists. If you're not following it, the odds of you seeing it are small. But
right. Again,
it's not really any different. It's the same issue. In fact, it's worse because now you got to find the URL. One of the advantages of the blogs is that you can cross-link easily. But if you want a Twitter account, I think what we need to do is raise it up to operations.
Sure.
I'm not saying it can't be done. Just are you sure you want it?
Sure.
Okay. I guess I was looking for is there a
yes,
round the cloud?
Unless somebody says we don't need that, anything grows takes time to grow. A year before Scorecard wasn't in the stage right now. But my argument to that is we should try and do that, and we'll see whether it is successful or not. It's not going to cause any harm. Let's put it that way.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I'll let you post the request there, and then if there is a policy that I don't know of, we will find out together. All right, I like Carolyn Lee just posted Twitter with Twitter. We can shamelessly retweet exciting new releases.
I have the next, unless somebody else has any other thing. My next item is also the part of the agenda is like, I want to bring this up. Our code coverage metrics have been going down in these last 6 months. I took that, I had the coverage metrics, which was 58, and it is around 42% right now. That 16% drop, that becomes an issue with reliability, and especially becomes a problem of new contributors coming in. Hey, how do I have confidence to do any patches. So my strong suggestion is to enforce this, enforce code coverage in our PRs so that we don't keep falling down. I'm opening.
By the way, I don't know if it works on your tech stack, but for us, on the best practices badge, we require that it never go down. If you make a commit, it fails if your coverage percent goes down.
Yep, we
If
do
you're
have that
adding
option.
code and you're not adding at least enough tests for that code, it won't get accepted.
Perfect. We do have that option, but we haven't turned it on, and that's the idea behind having this conversation right now.
Okay, so you're proposing to turn on that option.
Yes, I'll let Lauren talk about this.
We over in the best practices badge have 100% code coverage.
Hey, Lauren, do you have a specific comment?
Yeah, I was curious, the big drop in July 2022. Do you know what happened? Did we add a big chunk of code? Or?
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. But I've been tracking this. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like we have a badge on top of our README, which is constantly going down, which is on our face to say it's going down. And I'm like, okay, we need to do something about this. Probably there's probably a big code base that came in that didn't. I don't know, to be honest on that.
I think by definition, that's true.
Yeah, right.
Unless there's a bug in code call, which is also possible.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
Or a bug in the tests.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a setting somewhere where you can configure CodeCoff to actually, print these metrics on each pull request. I don't know if it's enabled on this repo. It is?
Yes. You're right. We haven't enabled that, right? Like I said, yes, we haven't enabled that. We also have it part of PR. No, sorry, I apologize. It is part of PRs. It does provide metrics, but we haven't had that action. It provides a failure on the action if the metrics are not met. We haven't turned on that option to have that as a required build action before we merge that in.
Okay, but it does show in the PR that these files have reduced. Okay.
Yes. Azim?
Sorry, I was just asking. I think we had this discussion before, and the reason we didn't enable it is it can cause a lot of false positives. Like people may just be touching the code and not adding any new logic, and CodeCow will complain saying that, hey, coverage dropped. So is there a setting to say, some threshold to avoid these false positives, to say like only if you go below 5% coverage in a single PR, then we block you or something of the sort.
Okay, cool. So sorry, I'm pulling right now something on this front. I did a PR. I'm going to post that link. Just a moment, please. I built a tool for Sigstore. Spencer, if you don't mind, I posted in Slack. Can you open that up, please? Sorry, not in Slack. I apologize. In the Zoom meeting.
Sure. Let me copy it over.
Sure.
Yeah, I presume you're doing the code coverage for the entire test suite, right? Both the end-to-end, unit testing, everything, right?
The end-to-end does not provide metrics. Does not provide what are the thing code path it hit, because the Go tool does not know where it hit, what it did. So it's almost like black box testing. So we will not be able to do that.
Your code coverage is purely about not the end-to-end.
Yeah, it is the unit test. It's not about the end-to-end.
That's unfortunate.
Yep. To answer Azim's question on this, specifically, we can. I built this tool for 6.2, which had a similar problem, wherein they wanted, as you scroll down on that, like we don't have to go into that. Somebody asked a specific question, can I have, like, we don't want to fail for it. This essentially says, I want certain tweaks, essentially saying, hey, I want coverage for this package being this, like package within the package, I want it to be for an existing sub packages to be whatever percentage it needs to be. There should be an option to override, and what Azim mentioned is, can I, if it's 37, it can go down by 1%. It could essentially allow it to go down by 1%. So, and there's no rocket science. It's just a simple tool parsing the JSON file out and doing some tweaks, which will specifically solve our problem of, this is another option. I'm not saying this is the option, but CodeCurve does not provide an option, at least as far as I know on top of my head. Hey, if it goes down by 0.5%, it's fine. But if it goes down by 2%, it's not, you should fail. I can try and check if that option is there. But we need to do something about this.
Stupid question. Has anybody checked whether or not we can modify things so the end-to-end tests are included in the code coverage? I don't understand why that's a limitation of the code coverage tool.
The end.
I mean, as long as you can instrument the software during the end-to-end test, you should be able to get that.
At least right now, it includes the end-to-end, but the end-to-end does not give out any results. Again, what you're saying is not, I need to go check on that. Like what you're saying is right. I need to go check on that. Lauren, do you have a question on this specifically? Your hands is. Oh, no, okay.
Yeah. So if I can, I would propose do that first, because it may very well be that the test coverage is much better. If I'm guessing that there's been more and more moving towards end-to-end tests, I think there's a lot of advantages to end-to-end. But if they're not getting included, the tests are actually much better than these metrics are showing.
I can go look at that, but
okay. I mean,
I'm saying what if it's already included? I don't want to, I can bring it up again on this, but if we make some concrete plans of what we want to go about doing it, it's going to make the project better. So right now, I was the one who included the end-to-end. I was the one who included the code curve. From my memory, if it serves right, it is included. But I don't know whether those results reflect back in this, but I'm going to go check on that.
Awesome.
It's going to be
I know the CodeCurve tool posts an initial comment and then edits it later. So I don't know if that's the end-to-end tests coming in after a few minutes.
Oh, you're right. Probably it is. Yep.
So are the numbers you're showing here the updated numbers after a few minutes, or?
If you, Spencer, if you don't mind, can you open one of the existing PRs on? Yeah, so we get to see what it is. Yep. So it's specifically like if you go to the PR, like with the code, if you go back to the code per se, it'll specifically showcase. You don't have side by side, or else it'll like all these are new files. So all these are new files. We don't know usually it reports the coverage metrics. I don't know. Yes. So it clearly says, hey, this line of code is not covered, which specifically calls out what is covered and what is not covered.
Okay. So clearly it is noticing some things not covered.
Yep. So like I mentioned, my suggestion is that we turn this feature on. It's going to be pain, but if we want to grow our community, we need tests. Only with tests, we're going to have more new contributors coming into this project, and it's going to take time, but it's going to give them a lot of confidence of any PR that they do. They don't have to know everything, all the moving parts within Scorecard.
I love the idea of requiring, not reducing the amount of test coverage for something to be pulled in. I don't think we need to wait for that. I think it would be good to double check that the end-to-end tests are getting included, because if they're not, then I think the numbers are a little misleading.
Absolutely.
But you can do those two things in parallel.
Yep. I can do both those things in parallel. Does anybody think it's a bad idea to turn this turn this setting on, that we can have that?
But it's kind of a double-edged sword, where if you have a contributor that might be willing to write a like a feature update and then not willing to write the test for it, we could lose that contributor, for example.
Correct.
Or someone else steps in to finish a PR. But I do, like, I'm not sure just catering to them is worth it if you're inspiring that whatever they're contributing isn't being tested.
Yep. There's no point if it's not tested. We should not, because it could be breaking other things and we are flying blind. So I concur.
So one question, right? Like, how important is because at the end of the day, the code coverage is just a number, which is not even like, I don't think it's super deterministic either. So if I think like reliability or maintainability is the issue, should we just have it? I mean, we could just have like a more cultural change in our code review, which says that, if you're adding extra logic, we expect you to write tests, which also allows us to, maybe be a little easier on new first-time contributors or outside contributors. But if it's a major change by a maintainer, we can explicitly require that they write it, which seems like more reasonable than relying on like arbitrary numbers. I think one of the reasons I'm not super confident on code coverage, I think that number is like very arbitrary. I don't think it really tells you anything of much value in my opinion.
I'm gonna wait for somebody else to comment before I jump on that.
Actually, I had a similar point that instead of enforcing it, you could probably like just add a point to the PR template, which says that I have added checks. Because sometimes what happens is that I might change a line of code and there were no existing tests for it, and then to expect me to then write the whole set of tests for something becomes a bit, so like doing it on a case basis by knowing the data, right? So the information that there's, yes, the test coverage has dropped, and then one can take a decision. So I guess it's between that versus a hard fail of the PR, right?
What you're saying is absolutely right. I'm not disagreeing to it. We already have that option. We already have that option in our PR. Have a checkbox. Do you have tests covered? Let me talk about myself. I am lazy sometimes to make sure what is the coverage, what it is. And I'm like, I upload the PR. So I can talk for myself. I can't talk for others. I can talk for myself. And that's why we have from 58 to 42 right now. Unless somebody comes and says, no, that number is wrong. So even if, let's assume 58 was without end-to-end, and today the state is same for 42 without end-to-end, we have the soft flag on, but we're still failing. Or we are going down. I didn't mean failing, but we are going down. I want to avoid that from short-term perspective with respect to risk, and also long-term perspective with respect to having new people come and contribute, have confidence as to can I do a patch, and be confident that nothing will break, or the chances are lesser. And this is just not scorecard. I'm talking about scorecard, scorecard action, scorecard web app. Like I'm talking about the whole suite of things, not just, I'm not saying just for this one project, but scorecard related to all projects. That is the 3 projects.
The scorecard related projects.
Yes.
I tweaked the notes.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like nobody's opposing. Am I misunderstanding the room, virtual room? But you know, you can always enable it and either force over update if there's a specific case where you need to override, or discover that this is a terrible idea and undo it.
That's a route I wanted to. So now, Azim, Laurent, and I have option to turn off that setting and merge something in that, but that means that somebody has to explicitly go turn that off, merge that in, and then go turn it on. So let's, that being an option, that we still have an override option, but it's a little jump through hoops, but let's do that.
I'm taking some notes, and hopefully I captured it correctly.
Yes.
But it sounds like the answer is yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
And we're also going to enable the code coverage on each PR?
It is already on each PR.
Okay.
It's already there. That proposal is not required. That's already there.
Okay.
But we have to enable that for GitHub Action. Sorry, the scorecard action and scorecard web app, which we are planning to do, which we should do.
And then you're gonna make the check required, or?
Yes, we need to make the check required.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and then looks like our last agenda item, David, did you want to talk about the chaos working group?
Yes, and this won't, I don't think this will take too long, but I mean, if people want to ask questions, I am here. So basically, Chaos is another foundation, kind of a sister to OpenSSF and so on. Their overall task is they're trying to identify and really nail down very specific metrics definitions, so that, you know, in theory, everybody knows exactly what a particular metric means and that sort of stuff. The Chaos has a specific subgroup called the Risk Working Group. I've participated a little bit in them, where they try to identify measures that involve risks, including security risks. So the lead of that particular group is Sean Goggins. It seems to me like, you know, it would be good for these two groups to talk to each other. So I have, so Sean Goggins and I talked. He'd like to show up at the next gathering and just briefly explain, here's the metrics we've kind of defined. Here's the kind of things we're working on. You know, are any of these of interest to the scorecards group? And conversely, is there a metric that you would really like somebody to dig in and try to define more rigorously in a way that would be helpful back to this group? So anybody object to them showing up and giving a brief explanation of what they've got that might be helpful and trying to find out what you would like?
No, I think that'll be great, David. Thank you.
Yeah. So, an unfortunate complication is I may not be able to be here at that next gathering because I have a conflict myself. So if I can, I'll be there. But if not, I think it's always good to have different groups talk to each other. You'll probably find out something from somebody else. So at least somebody leaves better off than when they started. So thank you. That's all I had.
Cool. So unless there are any other comments on that portion of the agenda, we've reached.
I have a question. It should
Yeah.
be quite easy. I would ask for a feature in Scorecard. With the working group identify security threat, we are working on a specification, a YAML file that would like to aggregate a lot of information related to security, like where is the security.md or the policy or the contact or other information that can be related, like SBOM file and similar, that sometimes are not so standard. And it can be helpful for a lot of people, maintainer, developer, community, and also packet manager and so on. So we have now the schema. So the schema is ready, but it would be great to integrate it in the scorecard. So the scorecard could be able to read it, also to reduce maybe false positive that we have had in the past. So initially this specification was born to help some open source project that receive a low result in the scorecard because the scorecard was not able to match some file that they have, but in a different path or in an unusual path, I think. So I can open a pull I can open an issue where I explain the project and maybe we can discuss how it could be implemented or at least test, because it could be help, I think. Oh, a lot of hands. So please talk. Oh, 3 hands. Okay, too many. I don't know the order, so start to.
So to clarify, is this the Security Insights project that you're talking about?
Yes, exactly.
All right. So I think we've had this discussion in the past around adding checks which consume Security Insights data. Our biggest concern has been around like trust and reliability, in the sense that it's basically, since scorecard today is pretty opinionated, where we say, hey, we've checked this is what GitHub API returns, and based on that we are telling that the code reviews have happened and things like that. I think there is some risk here of not like malicious risk, but there is risk of like developers adding any kind of data, and we would be relying on it. That is not to say that this is something that we are opposed to. I think Scorecard is trying to move in this direction where we kind of want to be kind of almost unopinionated and let users who are consuming Scorecard make their decisions. I don't think we are there yet, but I guess when we do reach there, this might be a good discussion to have. But given the state in which Scorecard is today, I feel like it might be a little hard to say that this should be a separate check in Scorecard. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Yes, I understand, but there is in the Security Insight project a TED model that explains this. The risk of false data is low because it doesn't mean that the scorecard cannot check the GitHub API, but this means that in the future, scorecard could check also other repo based not just on GitHub repo, and not all the open source is based on GitHub. So maybe it's something that can help. It's like security.md. The scorecard can check if it exists, but it's not so different to check all the URL. I mean, if I have the security.txt and I link it instead of having the security.md, I mean, it's the same for a researcher that want to contact the maintainer, but for the security scorecard, you are saying that the project don't have a security policy, but maybe it's not true. And this is a real example based on Apache. that is quite big Apache Foundation.
Can I ask something? So since you have data about false positive and negatives, why don't we use all your insights and improve Scorecard to make it look at the right places that people might have? For example, I don't know, the security.md. I'm just wondering whether security inside.yaml is an additional burden on developers. Maybe some will use it. I don't know. Maybe some won't. But I'm just wondering whether if you have the data, could we use these insights to improve Scorecard instead of putting the burden on developers?
It's a good question, and I mean, of course, the security insights can help just if the community start to use it. This is definitely true, and I think that this is true for every standard or specification. The reason why I think it can help the scorecard and in general people is that at the moment, if you have, for example, if you are a foundation, you have a lot of repo, maybe you don't want to update every policy every time because maybe you have the security.md. You want just to have a single policy, maybe on a website, and then link it to the repo or where you prefer. And in addition, GitHub offers the security page, it's very nice, but other services like Bitbucket and GitLab could offer a different approach, or just a repo that are not on GitHub. And if the goal is to help to improve or to help the developer and community to make decisions according to the data, the security insight can help because it is a file that you can more or less analyze using a tool because it is a YAML, and it doesn't depend by the platform, especially.
So I didn't, yeah, I totally understand what you mean. I didn't fully understand. So on GitHub, if Apache Foundation was on GitHub, maybe they're not. They can just put one .md in the org, and it can point to their website, so that would work. On other platforms, like I think you said Bitbucket, they don't have this. Does that mean that every developer is going to have to create that .yaml? And is that not the same as just creating a README with a link to it?
Yes, I mean, but the difference between this YAML and just create a link to the README or to the security policies that this YAML can aggregate. I mean, the goal is to aggregate all the information, not just the security.md, but also other information that can be helpful to, for example, push the package on a package manager, like some, if you check now on, usually I check Maven and PyPy, and there are a lot of broken link or outdated link because there is not an easy standard to maintain this. With this file also, for example, directly the package manager can check if the information match, for example. It's not just for the security scorecard, it is for the community, and it should be a way to read and collect information easily. Also when the project don't follow maybe the correct specification or standard. And another example is the SBOM file. At the moment, a lot of projects exists, a lot of open source project or project related to SBOM, but there isn't a sort of standard or best practice where you should put the SBOM file or how we should format the SBOM file. We want to have a SBOM file. The community and the projects are trying to add more information related to third-party packages, but at the moment we don't have a clear standard. Instead of having multiple link or standard, you can just put the link to your SBOM in security insights, and everyone can find it. Also, if it is in your website, in the GitHub repo, or where you prefer.
Sorry, I don't know what bump file is. I feel like all the connections to package managers is something that Salsa is trying to do. So I guess I need to read more about everything.
Okay, yes, no, of course. No, I can open an issue and I can try to explain. I can add all the link. I mean, open an issue to ask the feature, of course, but I can also add all the information about security insights so we can talk. Maybe Scorecard don't need to use all the information for sure, If you can retry the information for the API, of course you can drop from the file, but there are maybe other information that can be helpful. For example, if a project have or not have a bug bounty program or something similar, that can be interesting for the community, at least for the independent security researcher community. So it's not just for the maintainer or the developer, it should be a standard that should help different people, or I mean.
Yeah, get it. Thanks.
And the last hand.
Yeah. Okay. One thing, like to what Azim and Lauren mentioned, is people can game this. Like I can be a bad actor. All of a sudden, Scorecard will start producing good results, which becomes hard. I think we also talked about this wherein Scorecard providing two kinds of scores. Essentially, one is scorecards without using this insights tool, and one is with insights tool. That could be another option, but for that we need infrastructure. That means we need to write code, and like unless at least I'm going to speak for myself, we have quite a lot of issues and backlog items that we are working on. I'm saying it would be great if insights team or have an idea behind that to open that as an issue or do a pull request, and that would be a great iteration to move forward. So essentially giving both the scores, so essentially gives customers warm and fuzzy feel as to I can still whether should I trust that other score or not.
I mean, I agree that the scorecard can use or not use it could be an optional file. It could be the scorecard can decide just to not count the information, but just provide the information. Sometimes it can be helpful. So how the scorecard can use the file can be defined, of course, in a discussion, in an open discussion. I don't think that I'm saying that I don't want to say that the scorecard should trust to every information in the file, but some information can be trusted just because they are not different how the scorecard works now. So if the scorecard check not the content of a policy, but just if the policy exists, this file can help to mitigate the false positive. If I receive a return, I mean, if I add an empty contribution.md in a project, it's like it doesn't exist. But for the scorecard, it exists. So I think that this kind of false positive could be in the future mitigated also from this YAML, especially because policy and document are something that the community define over time, and the project start to use after a long time. I mean, for example, security.txt seems to be popular, but at the same time, it's not so popular because in the top of 5,000 websites, less than 25% have it, and we consider it popular. So this kind of approach and specification for sure require time. So Scorecard can be a good way to give visibility to a file that have information that the community needs sometimes. Basic information, just maybe the domain to the project or the email contact for the maintainer that require, or how to report the security issue. A lot of big projects don't have a security.md, or they have it, but in a different place. And having an easy way to collect, aggregate this information, because security insight could be used by other scanners, not just by Scorecard, to provide well-ordered data that at the moment we haven't. I mean, from that perspective, I think that it can help. So Scorecard we can decide how Scorecard can use it, but if we add the support to Scorecard, it is a good way also to show to the community how security site can work and why it can be helpful. I don't think that the security scorecard can be the only tool that can use this file to collect information. I think especially that other, I think the backend manager can use this file to maintain information updated. because if the security insight is directly in the repo, I can trust it. If I have already the package linked to a particular repo, I can trust also to the security insight because I am linking the two, the project on the package manager, so the package and the source code. So there is no reason for a package manager to not trust to the file in the security insight. And at the same time, probably it is the best way to maintain the data updated. There are a lot of PyPy projects and Maven projects that have a lot of contact or website that are not updated. It's very cheap to take over a domain that is expired.
Cool. Yeah, I think if you have an issue, if you make an issue, we can discuss it more because we're running over time.
The overtime, definitely. Sorry. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you. So just real quickly, the last thing would be picking a facilitator for next week. Are there any volunteers for the 22nd?
I can do it.
All right, thanks, Raghav.
Spencer, if you don't mind, can you add my name to October 6th? So I think,
yeah,
cool, thanks.
Great. All right, thanks everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.